Welcome to the Gilbert K Show. Get ready to meet the musical genius behind Hollywood's biggest hits. Joining us is Dominic Lewis, award-winning composer of Bullet Train, The Fall Guy, Spirited, Karate Kid Legends, and Your Friends and Neighbors. With a trail of BMI wins, Annie and ACTA nominations, and upcoming projects like Nobody 2, directed by Timo Chayantos, Dominic is the powerhouse shaping the sound of today's film and TV. Let's welcome Dominic Lewis.
Our traditions are rooted in history. Kung Fu, karate. The tree grows strong.
You knew Mr. Miyagi?
I did not come looking for Sensei Miyagi. I came looking for you.
Hey Dominic, how are you today? Pleasure to have you on the show.
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Let's move on to our first segment, Foundations and Breakthrough. Before we dive into your latest projects, give us the short version. What led young Dominic Lewis from cello lessons at 3 to scoring major films and series?
Oh man. As you say, I played cello from the age of 3, and then, my dad actually, he was in a very famous quartet called the Medici String Quartet, and he started doing film sessions late on in his career, and coinciding with that, I was at school with Rupert Gregson Williams' stepdaughter. And so I started falling in love with film music, and then obviously I was friends with Sadie. And so like the worlds were colliding, and then, I got to meet Rupert, and he sort of took me under his wing and would invite me down to the studio and let me help out. Because at the time I'd been doing lots of arrangements for songs and stuff, but it wasn't big enough. I wanted to do bigger stuff, and I fell in love with film. So yeah, just started doing that with Rupert, kept in touch through college whilst I was at the Royal Academy of Music, and eventually got myself out to Los Angeles, met Hans Zimmer, met John Powell, and now I'm doing my own stuff. So I still pinch myself.
Living the dream.
Yeah, pretty
That's
much.
amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So you've worked across genres and formats, animation, action, and drama. What drew you specifically to the show Your Friends and Neighbors and Karate Kid Legends? Were these passion projects from the start or unexpected opportunities?
Well, Karate Kid, I still can't believe I did the music for a Karate Kid movie. So when I got offered that, I jumped at the chance to do that. That was a no-brainer for me. But Your Friends and Neighbors was a slightly different way of getting a gig. I ended up demoing for it. Actually, I think it was a couple of composers that went up for it. But when they sent me the scripts, I kept asking them for more scripts because I loved it so much. So it became a real passion project. Even before I got it, I wanted it so badly because, normally at this point I would probably stray away from demoing for something. But I wanted it so bad that I demoed for it, and fortunately I got it. But they had to ask me to stop asking for scripts, and they weren't allowed to send me any more scripts. So excuse me. So no, I Your Friends and Neighbors is a real passion project for me.
Yeah, that's great. So let's move on to our next segment, and we're gonna have a deep dive about the show Your Friends and Neighbors.
Okay.
Let's talk about it, and it's a delicious mix of crime and dark comedy. What was your first reaction when you read the script or saw early cuts?
My first reaction was, as I said earlier, like, give me more, like let me
me
read more. But when actually receiving picture, it took a while, you know. It took a while to get the sound. Like I would talk
Yeah.
with Jonathan Tropper, the showrunner and writer, and yeah, he was very adamant that it had to be piano based. He loves the piano, and that was sort of the central point. That's like Cooper, the central point. And from that point on, it was, you know, how do we keep the whimsy of it without it getting too dark? Because I think the point was like, if it gets too dark, then we're going to lose our love for Coop and his journey through all of this.
Yeah.
So it was a challenge for me to kind of to straddle that line of, you know, comedy and thriller and like all the stuff that the show encapsulates. So it did take a while to get the sound. But I think we landed on something cool.
So when you read the script, did you get right away ideas and stuff how the musical tone is going to be, or
I mean,
roughly?
to a certain extent,
Yeah.
I think, you know, with the vibe of the show and reading the script, like it obviously had sort of a mix of, well, also it being John Hamm, you sort of get like that Mad Men vibe, that
Yeah,
lovable rogue kind of thing, along with like a little bit of American Beauty vibes thrown in there, and you know, that quirky, that I knew it needed to be quirky,
Yeah.
somewhat quirky. So so when reading, I knew that I was going to go down that road, and I think my first demos were too quirky and too strange. Just like really trying to do something out of the box and like show that I can do something different.
Yeah.
To try and prove myself. But I always like to go that way because I can, you know, I can rein it in. I can bring it back. If I go too far, I can always bring it back. I think the worst note to get is like, can you do more? Because, you know, that's more work. So I always like to go too far and pull it back.
Yeah, that's great. So you co-wrote the theme song, The Jonases, with Hamilton Leithauser, which is both catchy and full of personality. How did that collaboration come about, and what were you both trying to capture with the main title?
Well, originally, I mean, I was asked to do the main title when we spotted the first episode. I flew out to New York and we all got in a room and started talking about the show, and we spot the first episode. And it just sort of like organically came up in the meeting. Oh, well, you know, Dom did a song in his last TV show in Kaleidoscope. Like, why don't we like have him do a song and see what happens? So I wrote the song. Everyone was really excited about it, and like we were trying to figure out who we would get to sing it. And Hamilton's name came up, and everyone was like, "Yeah, that's a great idea. Let's get him involved." And so we brought Hamilton in, and you know he changed a few things here and there in the arrangement, and basically came up with slightly more poetic lyrics than mine. Mine were a little on the nose. So yeah, he changed the lyrics and made it into more sort of abstract poetry, which was super cool. And then I flew back to New York, and we got in a studio in New York, and we bashed it out. It was like a few hour session, and we were still trying to come up with different lyrics for the chorus, and we were still working on it then, even in the recording session. So yeah, it was I sort of like gave birth to it, and then through like, you know, the time and whatever, we kind of like really got it to a place where everyone was like, wow, this is it. So it was a different process for me, because normally I just like I do the song, and that's the song, and we record the song, but there was like a little bit more arranging and writing after the fact.
Just curious, how long does it take you to create the music, or how much time do you have? Is it like they tell you few days, few weeks? It depends on.
Well, it got a little crunchy on the first season because, as I say, it took a little bit of time to get the sound of the show. So we took a lot of time on episode 1, and then it kind of boiled down to about 2 weeks an episode to get it done. And I'll get like a few days to do fixes when fixes came in, but it's about. I mean, that's kind of normal for a TV show.
TV is faster usually.
It's fast, yeah. So it was about 2 weeks an episode, and then I think I got a little bit longer for episode 9 because it was a lot of music.
Cool, very cool. Scoring a character like John Hamm's morally grey hedge fund criminal feels like a composer's dream. How did you approach his musical identity, and did his descent into chaos have a sonic arc in your score?
Yeah, scoring Coop was really fun. I think whenever I score a strong character like that, I like to sort of get into their head of what that character would listen to. Like, you know, what are they putting on when they go home and have a glass of scotch? What, you know, and even with John, I mean, I knew John is a huge Eels fan. So I was listening to a lot of Eels. I was listening to a lot of Blur. I was listening to XTC, like a lot of 90s stuff that was like quirky rock. So that's why you hear like a lot of that towards the beginning of the show. There's a lot of those elements in there, that sort of 90s Brit poppy rock stuff going on. And then, you know, as you say, as he sort of descends into chaos, those sort of more confident elements take a backseat, and the more kind of like thrillery and mystery elements take precedent, and you know, sadness and all those different strands of his character take over. And so they come full circle at the end in episode 9. But that was a sort of arc of him, and obviously everything centers around Coop. So Coop's theme is the main theme of the show, and so like he is the linchpin of everything. So that was and that was my goal from the start, to be like, this is the main theme, this is Coop's theme, and everything else will kind of work off that. Yeah.
So do you have a special music or special sound for each character?
Not all of the characters, but I mean, there are character themes. Yeah. So the main characters I have themes for. Obviously, Coop's main motif is that tritone, which is in the main title as well. That's like his sort of like, you know, it's the most what's the word I'm looking for? It's the most unstable interval on the keyboards, which is why I thought that would work for his situation. So that's sort of his situational motif. But, you know, that main theme, the main title, Coop's theme, if you want to call it, like, from that is Mel's theme is born out of that. And that's more of a question that never really resolves, because we're never really sure where Mel is with, you know, her trajectory and her story. So those are sort of the two main themes I'm using. And all the other stuff is sort of sounds and like little motifs. There's lots of other little motifs that aren't as strong. So it's like Coop and Mel are the main linchpins. Yeah.
That's great. Wow. So the show walks, probably you covered some of it. The show walks a tightrope between tension and comedy. What was the biggest musical challenge in finding that balance? Were there any scenes where the tone really made you second guess your first instinct?
Yeah, I mean, as we've said, it was a challenge to kind of come up with that soundscape.
Yeah.
The one scene I remember having to do a few times was that first "This Is What Happens" sequence with Coop, when he starts out as a young man. You see his trajectory through the hedge fund, and then, you know, house 1, house 2, house 3. That was originally a song, and they thought it would be a really cool idea to kind of pull in the elements of the main title, because in the first episode we don't have a main title. So it took me a few goes. The energy wasn't right, and then I can't even remember. I sort of blocked out because it was like, I think version 4, and it's a long sequence. It's like, I don't know, 4 minutes or something. I remember having to do that a few times. That was challenging, because you've got to go through so many different aspects and keep it energetic and keep it moving. So that sequence, and then were there any other sequences that stumped me? I mean, not really, because I think it was just kind of that first episode. Once we got that in the bag, the rest just sort of unfolded quite naturally, which was cool.
Yeah. That's great. For episodic TV, you're building musical themes across multiple hours. I think it's going through the same thing. Okay, I'm gonna skip that.
Well, it's funny you say that though, because I mean, with
Yeah.
when you're doing the themes across a whole series,
Yeah.
I did get to the point in like episode 5
Yeah.
where I was using that coop motif so much that Jonathan was like, "I think you might need to kind of do something else." So I did have to come up with new stuff midway through the season, just because we were using that motif and that theme so much, and obviously you've got the main title that it's so strongly attached to that we had to be careful of theme fatigue. So I did have to kind of shift off and give that theme a little break in the middle of the season. Yeah.
Did it happen to you where you worked on a project where for the next season or the second season or third season, whatever season you're working on, you had to continue whatever it was developed, created?
Yeah, and it's really important to come up with new stuff for that second season, which I'm excited to do for Friends and Neighbors, because as I was kind of just saying, like the theme fatigue is real. Like you don't want to keep doing the same thing over and over again. Things have to move forward. I remember when I was doing Man in the High Castle, like after the first season, I like recreated a theme for Juliana's character, just because she was in a different place, because it's Kadic, you've got multiple worlds and all that kind of stuff. So I was able to kind of reinvent characters and characters' themes. I don't think I'm going to do that with Friends and Neighbors, but I mean, I think it is really important that you develop the material at the very least, and also come up with new stuff. And new characters will be coming in and new storylines, so it's inevitable that will happen. But yeah, you don't want to just rehash the same stuff because it gets boring.
That's true. You lose your audience.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to take a break right now. We're going to play a game called This or That, and it's a rapid fire game.
Okay.
And in this game, I'll give you 2 options, and you have to choose one as quickly as possible.
Oh, okay.
Are you ready, Dominic?
Yeah, pressure's on. All right, let's go.
Okay. Legacy franchise or original stories?
Original stories.
Comedy or action scoring?
Action scoring.
Theme song writing or underscore composing?
Theme song writing.
I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
Working with directors or showrunners?
Oh, that's mean.
You can say both.
That's mean. Well, I think so. Here, it's not quick fire, but I think that a showrunner on a TV show essentially is a director.
That's true.
If you're doing the comparison on a movie, I actually don't get any contact really with directors on TV because it's sort of handed over to the showrunner. So I'm gonna say both because it's the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Good answer. Creating new motifs or reinventing old ones?
Creating new ones.
Episodic TV or big screen features?
Big screen features.
Scoring, training montages or fight scenes?
Montage all the way.
All the way. Jazz-infused score or rock-inspired cues?
Oh, that's tough. Rock-inspired cues. Just because I'm better at rock than I am at jazz.
Yeah.
That's the only reason why.
Studio recordings or live orchestra sessions?
Wait, what do you mean by studio recordings?
Like on your own or like in a...
Oh,
an
no,
ensemble?
live orchestra all the way.
Live orchestra.
Yeah.
Writing solo or collaborating with musicians?
Oh, I'm going to sound like a curmudgeon, but writing solo. For the writing process, I prefer to write
for
solo.
the writing process.
With collaborating on recording, then yes.
Yeah.
The writing process is solo.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So just a question. I'm just curious about that actually. How do you make sure your vision is there? Like it will say like it will show, or you can it will have like your signature on the music, but at the same time you need to collaborate, right, with other musicians and stuff. How do you balance that? How do you? I think
it's different on different projects. I mean, your collaboration when you're doing it solo is
Yeah.
with your exec team, whether it's directors, producers, execs. You know, there is, and that those projects where you can collaborate with a director seamlessly are the most fun. You know, when I work with David Leitch, for example, like the collaboration there is second to none. Like we are the mutual respect and the creativity that happens between us is so fun.
Yeah.
And then, you know, when that dynamic is not necessarily there, then the collaboration of, you know, like when I work with Hamilton on the main tile, you know, it's a different thing. I do have my vision and I did want a certain thing, but he obviously was coming on to the project and he had his vision and the way he wanted to do things. So you sort of have to like figure it out, and you get like awkward moments at times, and like, well, I think it should be this. Well, I think it should be this, and you just you kind of just like you figure it out.
Find a middle ground.
It's really important to, when you're collaborating on writing, it's really important to check your ego at the door. And make it the best environment and experience to collaborate. If you're going into that room to collaborate, then check it at the door, because if you go in there puffy chest and I'm going to get my own way, then it's not a collaboration. You're just trying to infuse your will on someone.
That's true.
And you're not collaborating. So if you've made the decision to collaborate, then do that, and not let, you know, don't be a dictator in the room. So you know, it's different, you know, and then collaborating with the orchestra, like they will bring a new thing, or, you know, maybe the conductor says something, why don't we try this, or that note could be this, and I love all that stuff. That's great.
That's great. Okay, so let's move on to our next segment. We're gonna have a deep dive of the Karate Kid Legends. Now, switching gears, when you signed on to score this next chapter in such an iconic franchise, what was your first thought? Any pressure, any excitement?
Both. A lot of pressure. I was really, really excited. Obviously, a massive fan, particularly of the first one. And, you know, I've got two boys, and they adore the first movie and watch it regularly. So to experience it with them, you know, my nostalgia and being a big fan put a lot of pressure on me, because it's like, oh man, you know, Bill Conti is one of my heroes, and it's such an iconic film and soundtrack and score. You do kind of go, ooh, do I want to do this? But no, it was a lot of excitement. I was really excited to get stuck in, because I knew that it wasn't going to be that thing. We wanted to do something different with it. So the pressure was sort of off a little bit, because I was coming up with a kind of newer sound for Karate Kid.
Yeah, that's great. So with legends like Ralph Macchio and Jackie Chan returning, were you tempted to bring in some of the classics, Bill Conti or James Horner themes, or did you aim to start with a clean slate musically?
Well, originally I didn't know I was able to use Bill's themes. So I had started that first sequence with my theme that I'd written. It was throwback in feel, you know, that throwback to Karate Kid 2 with Mr. Miyagi and Daniel, and then we kind of got the green light that we could use Bill Conti's theme. So then I was like, oh well, I'm going to put it in there, and I'm going to do it there, because I wanted to honor Bill in this score and wherever I could, but at the same time I didn't want to use it too much, so it just sort of became like a rehash of old stuff. So, you know, there are some Easter eggs littered through the score of Bill's stuff. You know, I felt that maybe James's themes were not appropriate to this storyline. But I mean, if I'd been given the go ahead to use James's themes, I would have done. But yeah, I think it worked out better that it was like an homage to Bill in some of these areas.
Yeah, that's great. Action scenes in a film like this can go from playful to brutal. How do you use music to shift that energy? Any sequences you had a blast scoring, like training montage or fight scene that stands out?
Yeah, I mean, that whole the whole finale, from when he puts the bandana on, all the way through to, I mean, I think we can all guess how it ends, all the way through to the end. You know, I had to weave through that and hit so many different points. you know, as a finale of a Karate Kid movie is going to go, there's going to be ups and there's going to be a lot of downs before the ups. So doing that in a way that, you know, isn't traditional. I mean, there's a lot of production, there's a lot of electronic elements, beats, and a new kind of trying to do a new way of doing it was cool. I mean, very challenging. And as I say, I peppered in some Conti themes through there. There's lots of Easter eggs actually in that finale. But it's tricky. It's tricky because this particular film is cut so fast paced that you can't really dwell on anything for too long. So I think the biggest challenge for me in that respect was because my theme isn't exactly short. It's like a full theme, and actually had a B part at one point. So fitting that into a kind of fastly paced edited sequence without it sounding forced was tricky. We got there, but I mean that last sequence I did in one go, which is I think about 12 minutes. It was a whole reel. Wow. So I did the whole thing in one sitting, like worked from when he kind of puts the bandana on all the way through to the end. So because I wanted it to feel, I didn't want to like mix and match and like break it off in chunks, because I wanted to keep going back to where it come from. So I knew that where I was going, everything was going up step by step by step, and it had the right trajectory. So that was a fun one to do.
That's amazing. So let's take another break, and we'll play our final game. It's called True or False, and it's time to test some quirky facts about your life and career.
Oh, wow.
Are you ready, Dominic?
I don't know, but yes, I'll say yes, I am ready. Okay.
Okay. True or false? You co-wrote the main theme of the show, Your Friends and Neighbors, with Hamilton Leithauser.
That is true. That's a true statement.
True or false? You recorded all your own vocals to create a one-man choir for a previous score.
That's true. Violent Night.
True or false? You sold your cello to fly to Los Angeles and chase your composing dream.
That is also true. Yes, I did.
True or false? Karate Kid's Legends is your first film featuring Jackie Chan.
True. That's true.
Yeah,
yes.
It's a tricky one.
That's true.
Think, okay.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
You true or false? You secretly used a nod to Bill Conti's original Karate Kid theme in Legends.
That is true. Yeah. Many times.
You've worked. True or false? You've worked with Will Gluck, David Leitch, and Hans Zimmer.
I've worked with all those people. Yes, that's true.
Your first Annie Award nomination came from an animated Turkey movie.
That is true. Yeah, that was that I was like Alan Silvestri and like Christoph Beck and I was really green. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. You once scored a scene using nothing but sleigh bells and choir.
Did I? I mean, that would be... Did I? That would be Violent Night, but I don't think it was just that. I'm going to say false.
False, yeah. You compose original music for every main character in the show Your Friends and Neighbors.
It's every main character. Yeah, that's true. Every main character. Yes, that's true.
Main characters.
Yes, that's true.
And last one, true or false, you're planning to perform the Karate Kid Legends score live with an orchestra next year.
I wish that were true. I mean, I
just put it out to the universe.
Maybe it's true now you said it. Yeah, it's true now you said it. A plan doesn't mean it's happening. This can still be a plan without happening. But yeah.
Okay, let's move on to our final segment, Reflections and Future. Mm-hmm. Looking at both projects, TV and film, which one stretched you more creatively? The tonal balance in the show Your Friends and Neighbors, or the legacy and scale of Karate Kid Legends?
Oh, that's a really good question. They both had their challenges. I think Karate Kid was stretched me more, just because I had to had to span so many different things. It had to feel nostalgic. It had to feel like a ESPN special. It had to feel like a so many different elements, modern, old. I think that stretched me a lot. And also, I was dealing with like a lot of stuff that was beloved in the temp. And that's always really difficult to do when you have to like create something new and convince people that that's the one that they need to choose.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was. That's the one that stretched me the most. Yeah.
And if each project had a musical mission statement, what would it be? And what did you want the score to say to the audience, either emotionally or thematically?
Oh wow. Well, with Friends and Neighbors, it was, obviously combining mystery and comedy and thriller aspects. So I guess the mission statement was, the mission statement on that from Jonathan was, we can't go too dark because we're going to lose our audience, because we want people to relate and to root for Coop, even though he's stealing all this stuff. So that was the mission statement on that. The mission statement on Karate Kid was, we need energy, we need nostalgia, but not too much nostalgia. We need it to feel like, a sports event. We need everything. I mean, yeah, as I said, we need to encapsulate all these things. And could you do it in a month? That was sort of the mission statement on that. And so I can't remember what the second part of the question was, but
yeah, I think you answered it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And what advice would you give to composers working on high pressure projects like these, whether it's honoring legacy IP or building fresh sounds for bold new characters? What mindset helps you deliver?
I think for me it's become more about like, don't be afraid to show people who you are and what you bring to the table. You've been hired for a reason, and be strong with your ideas and really give them what you feel is right. And on the flip side of that, I think don't be too precious. It's not personal. At the end of the day, it's film composing. It's not just composing. So there's a huge element that isn't just music.
That's true.
And you have to do what's right for the movie. So I think in my young career, I was very I get really upset when people would throw stuff out and say it's not right. But now, now I'm old. You just have to kind of roll with the punches and really remember that it will get done at the end of the day. It's all going to be fine. And you'll do your best, and you'll do whatever you can do to make it happen. And I think as long as you remember that with these high pressure gigs, it's as long as you can make the film creators feel like you care and you'll do whatever it is, whatever it takes, then you're going to be in a good spot.
Yeah. Do you have tips or recommendations for people who are trying to jump into the film composition, like they're musicians or maybe like producers, but they're on the music side, not on the visual side? Is there anything they need to do? Do you have any tips, recommendations from what you went through?
Run away? No, I'm kidding.
Run away.
No, don't run away. No,
Because
literally
it's
the
different,
opposite.
right?
Literally the opposite.
Making music, it's different than the visual.
It's different, and I think tips. I think just do it as much as you can, whether it's practicing on your own stuff or taking other people's scenes and movies and trying it out, and just get experience of doing it. And it's like anything, whether it's sport or music or like reps, we call it in sport. But the more you do it, the more fluid you become, the more fluent you become in it. In terms of like breaking into doing it professionally, I think for me it was just like, have the goal and just don't take no for an answer. Don't give up. without being like pushy and annoying, but at the same
Yeah.
time, like you have to have it in your mindset that if that's what you want to do, there's nothing else you can do.
Yeah.
So that's just go ahead and do whatever you can in your power to do it.
Yeah.
And I know that's cliche, but you hear a lot of people say it.
That's
They're
true.
right on the brink of giving up, and then you get your break. So
Yeah.
I think if you know that's what you want to do, just don't. That's cliche, but just don't stop.
Yeah.
But I mean, I moved 6,000 miles to do it, and as you mentioned earlier, sold
you sold your
my
cello,
cello.
right?
So
Yeah.
I mean, there was no way in my brain that this wasn't going to be my reality.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as I say, it's very cliche and very kind of cheesy, but I'm sitting here talking to you about stuff I've written on TV
Yeah.
and film, so
That's
it worked
amazing.
for me anyway.
That's amazing. How can our audience connect with you?
I'm on Instagram, Dom Lewis Music on Instagram. And I'm pretty good about answering questions on DMs and stuff. And if anyone kind of contacts me, I do my best to respond. Sometimes I miss it, but I do my best. If people have questions, like I'm happy to answer questions or connect on Instagram. Yeah, that's probably the best place to get me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. We're nearing the end of the show, Dominic. That's all, folks. Thank you for watching. Dominic Lewis, everyone. Thank you, Dominic.
Thanks so much for having me. Thank you.